5 steps to transform our dark qualities as intuitive, empathic people into our positive creative pursuits. Hi, my name is Leah Chantel, and today I'm talking about how intuitive, empathic people can transform their dark qualities into their highest creative pursuits. And some intuitive, empathic people argue like, oh, we don't have any dark qualities. And that's just not true. We actually do have our own dark qualities. And they could be that we're too overly giving and that we're pushing people away with our qualities of overly opening our heart. I know for other intuitive, empathic people, we love that, but we can actually scare people away who are a little bit more left-brained when we're very open and too generously giving. And I've made that mistake myself and had to journal about that and process it into something more positive, which helped me create this video, actually. And when I was watching Netflix recently, I realized there's this new show called Baby Reindeer. And the thing about the character Martha on that show that really occurred to me was that she was potentially a good, intuitive, empathic, creative person who went really wrong somewhere along the way, really rogue, really following her intellect and believing she was right and doing all of these not productive behaviors. I don't like to say right or wrong, but having said that, stalking people is a pretty not productive behavior. And unfortunately, those gifts and that creativity could have been channeled into something great. She could have been a great writer or content creator. You know, she was writing all these emails and messages in a given day, following her emotions. And if she had found a way to channel that into a great work of art or a great piece of writing, then she could have uncovered the gifts from her negative emotions and her negative qualities instead of ending up becoming a criminal. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. And the main character in that story, Donnie, actually does successfully channel his negative qualities and hers, actually, from the story into this great story that has now become a huge hit on Netflix and has become a great example for all of us to learn from. So I'm going to talk about how we can channel our negative qualities as intuitive empaths in 5 steps into our positive creative works. And step 1 of that is, first of all, we have to identify when we're feeling a negative quality or a negative state. So one of the biggest mistakes that people who are dark make is that they don't realize that they're feeling dark. And it's interesting, I noticed that when I've talked about dark empathic qualities before, that people are in denial and saying that there are no dark empathic qualities. And that's just not true. We do have them. They're a little bit different from more left-brain people, but that doesn't mean we don't have a dark side. And so the trick is we have to identify first when we're feeling our negative emotions. If we're so unaware that we don't even know when we're feeling them or how we're reacting on the spot to our negative emotions, then we're gonna just automatically get caught into bad behaviors without even realizing it. And isn't that the scariest thing about the shadow, is that we don't even realize that we're behaving in ways that aren't helpful to us or appear really cringy to someone else. And when you're watching Martha on Baby Reindeer, you really get a good sense of how empathy and being kind and loving towards a person can go really off the rails and go really wrong. And so it's a good show, although it's kind of challenging to watch at times for the different themes that are in there to help us process our negative, dark qualities. And so becoming aware of our dark qualities means we catch ourselves in the moment when we're feeling dark, and we journal about those feelings in order to dump them out of our consciousness. Rather than act in unproductive ways, put them in a journal. And if you can't put them in a journal, but you get a moment alone, speak into your phone and talk about all the negative emotions and experiences you're having in a big emotional dump into your phone. And that'll be so helpful right off the bat. That in itself, just emotionally dumping your problems, may be enough by itself to solve them actually right on the spot. And you may feel better immediately just from doing that. So it's a big tool. Dump all of the emotional crap out when you're feeling negative, and don't try to suppress it, and don't try to pretend it's not there, because it is. And that's the first step to uncovering some potentially amazing creative gifts as well at the end of the process, if you are channeling and processing a really big negative event. So the next step, after you've emotionally dumped your negative emotions and you've spoken them into your phone or journaled about them, is that if they're still bothering you and they're still coming up, that likely means it's based on a past historical trauma that you've endured. Maybe you had a traumatic event as a child, or sometimes you may even have had a traumatic event in a past life. So when people can't identify where the traumatic feelings are coming from in their childhood, maybe they had a relatively happy childhood, sometimes that's a good answer for people to realize, is that maybe they had a traumatic event in a past life, like they starved, or they were crucified, or they drowned, or whatever it is. And when you realize that that has happened to you in a past life, or even if it's something that happened in your childhood, like a parent left, a good thing to remind yourself is that you're an adult now and you're living in current time. And so whatever it is that happened in your past life, it's not going to recreate itself that easily in your current life. And it's the same with childhood. You have resources now as an adult. Even if you're a young adult, you have more resources than you did as a child. And so you can realize that that thing may have happened, but I have a lot more resources now. And so I don't need to be emotionally afraid of it happening the same way again, because it really can't happen the same way again. And so when you have that moment to actually emotionally process what's happened in the past and journal about it, then that's a big step to recovery as well. If it's a chronic trigger that keeps coming up over and over again in your life, that's a big way to solve it, is by getting current and understanding that you have a lot more resources now as an adult, and that you don't have to keep going through the same traumas over and over again that you've experienced in the past. It's just that usually emotionally we haven't dealt with it. It gets kind of caught in that moment in the past, and then we get triggered in the present because something reminds us of that difficult moment from our past. The next step, after you've taken more steps to identify that trigger from your past, if that is necessary, is that you need to figure out how to really use these negative emotions productively in your present moment. So if it's something that keeps coming up over and over again from your past and you need to do more writing about it, maybe this is the point where you turn it into a story, or you turn it into a blog post or a video that you share with others online. And when you're able to process your negative events like that into something that other people can watch and experience, like that TV show, Baby Reindeer on Netflix, then that serves a very large number of people who could be going through the same traumatic events that you are, who relate to it on some level. And that helps them process their trauma and their difficulties as well. And so when you're willing to share like that, or at least start on a creative project like that, you have a potential ability to serve the world. And so that's the next step. If your troubling incident really isn't going away, if it's really sticking with you, figure out a long-term project that will help you process that difficult event and possibly share it with the world, although you don't have to. You know, if it's too difficult to do that, you may decide to just keep it for yourself, and that's okay too. The fourth step to process our difficult and dark emotions is to get support. Maybe find a good therapist or a really good friend who can be your support person while you're processing this difficult event, or you're working on this potential story that you're going to share with the world, and see if they can be the believing eyes for your story, that it will be successful, or simply just a compassionate ear when you are going through these difficult emotions. Having a really good friend and support person can help you tremendously with your negative emotions. And so if there are any helplines that you can call if you're being negatively pursued in some way by someone else, could also be helpful if you don't have a friend to talk to. But reaching out for support or talking to your family about some difficult events, if you're scared that, in the story in Baby Reindeer, the main character, Donnie, is concerned that his negative life story is going public and his parents are going to see it online before he has a chance to talk to them about it. Maybe you need to sit down and have a heart-to-heart with your family or your friends about some difficult things that have happened in your life, and to get that support from them. Depends on the nature of your friends and family. Not everybody's that supportive, so you need to make an assessment and a judgment call if it's really safe to talk to them about these things. And hopefully you can get really positive support from them. But if not, go look for other sources of positive support, maybe sharing circles or different groups online that you can join. It's worth it to look for the right people you can share with and get support. And then that will help you also process your trauma. And then step number 5 of converting your dark qualities and experiences and emotions into some positive creative pursuits is to look at the history of your life and understand that you've probably done this before. Think about your accomplishments and what motivated you to succeed. We do have positive motivations, and those are amazing, and those can be very healthy long term. But sometimes we've actually converted our negative emotions in order to achieve something positive in our lives. Maybe some teacher told us we weren't going to amount to anything, or we weren't going to pass the class, and then we proved them wrong by getting a university degree or a more advanced degree than they could have ever expected from us. Or maybe we proved somebody wrong in a different way. Maybe a friend said something really disparaging to us, and then we proved them wrong by showing them that we created success in our lives in a way that they never dreamed of or expected from us. Maybe we learned how to live abroad as a nomad and experienced adventure and growth in a very short period of time. That's an accomplishment too. It's not always about the traditional accomplishments of buying the house or getting the fancy car, although there's nothing wrong with those. Maybe sometimes success for you is just living the life that you've always wanted to on your terms. And those are legitimate forms of success. Write all those things down about when you've processed your negative feelings before and achieved success as a result of them. And the interesting thing you'll realize about your dark qualities is they're not really so dark after all. You just needed to really channel them to motivate you to do something positive. And if you think about it, if you ever wanted to become a writer or a content creator, you need some sort of motivation to keep yourself writing and to keep yourself going. And sometimes our negative emotions can give us some fuel to do that. Of course, I also recommend having positive motivating factors as well, but when the negative ones come up, I'm not saying that they're always bad or always deny them, but use them. Use your shadow, use your dark qualities. And the shadow, I believe, is a Jungian term for our dark sides, to really channel your creativity and succeed on a greater level than you've ever succeeded before. We've all done this and we know how to do it again, but we just kind of get stuck and we forget how we did it before. We get too comfortable. And so if we remember how we've done it before in the past, that can motivate us to create our future success. So I hope you enjoyed my video today about how to convert our negative qualities or our negative emotions into our positive creative successes. And if you have any comments about how you've done this in your life, I would be really curious to see them below. And if you've gotten inspired by this content, definitely hit subscribe. I'd be really happy to hear from you. And I hope you're all having an amazing Sunday. Take care. Bye now.